Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says a fund without a care for the RTI. The article here is speaking about PM Cares Fund. What does it stand for? It stands for Prime Minister Citizen Assistance and Relief in Emergency Situation. When was this fund initiated? This was initiated during the COVID-19. What was the objective? The Prime Minister of India requests the people to make contributions voluntarily. So all those individuals who make contributions during the COVID-19 period will land in the PM Cares Fund. What was the objective of it? The objective of it was to cater to the people suffering during the COVID-19. In case we have to procure equipments for COVID-19 or meet the demands during the COVID-19 or assist people during the COVID-19, this fund will be used as part of the PM Cares Fund to meet the issues with respect to COVID-19. However, where is this money being spent? On what is it being spent? Who are the people who are the beneficiaries from this particular fund? There was a plea under the right to information. However, the Prime Minister's office did not accept this right to information plea, and at the same time, it also said that PM Cares Fund does not fall under the public authority. Since it does not fall under the public authority, the information that was sought under the right to information was not given with respect to the PM Cares Fund. Then there was a petition filed in the Delhi High Court. There was a petition that was filed in the Supreme Court of India. In spite of it, since the PM Cares Fund was not under the public authority, required information was not given to the people of the country, which is where we have the author saying that ideally PM Cares Fund should have been considered as a public authority. It falls under the definition of public authority, and ultimately all the information should have been revealed. How does the author say so? He also takes into picture the previous funding system that we already have in the system. What are those? One, he takes into picture the National Disaster Response Fund. We already had the existence of National Disaster Response Fund. This was initiated under the Disaster Management Act of 2005. Since this is a statutory provision, this was passed by law in the parliament. It also meant that every question about the National Disaster Response Fund will be sought out under the right to information. In case we want to know where is the money being spent under the National Disaster Response Fund, every single question will have to be answered under the National Disaster Response Fund. Since it is also going to the Consolidated Fund of India, it will also come under the control of the auditing of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. And at the same time, the same Disaster Management Act of 2005 also established Disaster Response Fund at the state level, and it also provided district level funds in the Disaster Management Act of 2005, which will help in assistance at the district level. But with the establishment of the PM Cares Fund, most of the people made voluntary contributions where this was not established by the law of the parliament. It was not a statutory provision, and there were other benefits which were given under the PM Cares Fund, which we will discuss as well. So the author says while there was already an existence of a fund called as the National Disaster Response Fund, why did the government come up with a new type of fund which did not have the parliamentary backing, which did not have the constitutional provision? So why come up with it is the first question. The second the author speaks about is in reference to the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund. What is this Prime Minister National Relief Fund? This was established during the period of 1950s. What exactly happened? During that period, we had large number of people who had to migrate from Pakistan to India. To assist those displaced persons from Pakistan, we had the Prime Minister of India back then, Jawaharlal Nehru, who asked the people to make voluntary contributions. So people did make voluntary contributions as well. Initially, when the fund was collected, this was used by the government basically to help the displaced people. But over a period of time, this particular funding was used for number of other activities like taking care of the people who were hit by the natural calamities, victims of the major accidents and riots, so on and so forth. Again, during this particular period, number of activities of emergency nature was also conducted by the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund. So the COVID-19 is also a national emergency. Why not utilize the same fund? Why come up with a new fund is a question being asked by the author. Added to this, when we speak about this fund, we also had in this fund some of the important positions which were taken by the President of India. It also had the leader of opposition as the trustee members of the Prime Minister National Relief Fund. But if we compare the same with the PM Cares Fund, it has no place for the opposition. It only has few cabinet members who are part of the government. So what you actually see is more transparency in the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund. It has much better initiatives that have taken place in the past. So why come up with a new fund is another question being asked by the author. Taking into picture these two viewpoints where there was already an existence of a funding system, why did the government of India come up with such an establishment? When you look into the first one, it is a statutory law. When you consider the second one, you also had opposition members as well. But how was the PM Care established? The PM Cares Fund was not issued a notification. It was not passed by a constitutional amendment. It did not have any statutory backing, but a website was created, and after this there were national symbols that were used. You had the national symbols that are being employed, and as a result, the author goes on to say that this was an arbitrary manner enforcement of a particular fund. In fact, we've also used emblems of Saranath lions, Satyameva Jayate as well. These are the national emblems and symbols. This ideally should not be used. There have been websites where it ends with government.in. These are the official websites. It means that the government is supporting it. Since there are these claims, ideally it means that this PM Cares Fund should come under the authority, that is the public authority, under the right to information. Added to this, when we consider the funding, in case there are people who are making contributions to the PM Cares Fund, they would be provided benefits under 80G for 100% exemption under the Income Tax Act of 1961. PM Cares Fund also gives exemption under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Donations that are made to the PM Cares Fund will also be counted as the corporate social responsibility. So what is happening? There are people who are contributing to the government. These are all related to the government acts as well. So if it is related to the government act, they are taking exemptions as well. Ideally, if these funds were used, they are under the statutory provision. But since it is being diverted to PM Cares Fund, it also means that comes under the public authority. So ideally, this should also be declared as public authority under the right to information, and the government has the responsibility, the onus, to provide every single information as to where is this money being spent, for what is this being spent, and everything has to be transparent, says this article. In fact, we have the government in the past which has spoken about transparency and accountability and bringing an end to corruption as well. So the author insists, if the government of India is promising the very aspects of governance, of accountability, transparency, and ending corruption, it has to start by declaring the PM Cares Fund under the definition of public authority, where right to information please have to be respected and information will have to be delivered, says the author. So all the information in the form of records, documents, emails, opinions, advices will have to be catered to the means of the right to information, says this article. So basically, PM Cares Fund should be declared as a public authority and should not be evading any of the transparency rules and modules, says the author. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says a scheme before its time. The article here is speaking about Prime Minister recently launching the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission. What is this initiative all about? This happens to be a digital initiative. Digital initiative of what? This is about health parameters where every single person who voluntarily wants to engage in this particular mission will be provided a 14-digit health identification number. So what is this 14-digit health identification number? Let's assume for a moment that you are going to a particular hospital. Each time you go to a hospital, you would be given a registration number. Now, what if you go to a next private hospital? Again, you will be provided a different registration number. So each time you go to a different hospital, what you would have is different registration number as per the software that is developed, as per the algorithm that is in picture in that private hospital. But what if you are given one single number, where this one single number is accessible across all the hospitals in entire India? So basically, this particular number will be given to an individual, where the data of that individual with respect to the health parameters is all located in one single database. As of now, there are multiple options that we currently have. As in, when we enter one private hospital, we have to register, a ID is given, a registration number is given. Go to a different hospital, different ID, different registration number. This will be completely done away with, and what we will have is one single number which can be accessed in all the hospitals throughout India. However, this is not a compulsory one. This happens to be a voluntary initiative. How does this work? Every citizen who wants to enter into this particular digital mission will be given a particular option. So it's a voluntary option. So what would happen? He has to register by giving his mobile number or his Aadhaar number. Is giving Aadhaar number mandatory? No. Since this is a voluntary one can also use the mobile number for registration without the Aadhaar as well. So what would happen? Under this particular registration, if a person gets registered, he will be provided this 14-digit health identification number, which will give the information about that patient, that individual, about the every test that patient has gone through, every disease that patient has, the doctors that he has visited, the medicines that he was previously given, and the diagnosis reports as well. Usually what happens whenever we go out, what happens, we have to take huge piles of reports as well. We would have gone to one private hospital, take the reports, we go to another private hospital, give this reports, and we go to another private hospital, give reports after reports. Sometimes during this confusion we might also forget few reports as well. So what will happen? What is a significant feature? Since all of these reports, tests and diagnosis and their viewpoint about that disease will all be given and updated in this 14-digit identification number, the doctor would be able to give much better information. Why? Because he can see the entire history of that patient. So you go to the doctor will open this identification number with your consent, and he would be able to see what is the past report data all about, and then he would also be able to advise you in a much better way. So this information will also allow that particular person to also delete it as well. That also is an advantage. So you would be able to delete the information either temporarily, or you can delete the profile even permanently as well. That option is also given to that individual. So the individual, if he has registered for this 14-digit identification number, he can temporarily withhold it, which means it will not be accessible for a specific period of time, and he can also delete the data permanently. Once it is deleted permanently, he would not be able to access that particular data because the entire data is washed out. But if it is temporary, that period for which he has deactivated, he would not be able to access the information. Added to this, once the data is fed into the system, this data will look into what is happening with respect to that patient, and it may also give the patient whom to reach out to, which is the best hospital close by, who are the doctors available for that particular disease, and where the patient can go with respect to that particular disease. So this happens to be one of the unique initiatives taken by the government of India. But as we have told you, it is a voluntary scheme. It is not a compulsory scheme. It is not a mandatory scheme. The patient can enter as and when he wants. He can deactivate it temporarily, or even ask that identification numbers officers to completely delete the data as well. They can also allow another person as the nominee as well. In case we want some other person to access the data, help us, we would be in a position to name someone as the nominee, where they would also be able to access this data. These are the significant features when it comes to the Ayushman Bharat digital mission. However, what we have to focus is not only on the digital advancement, but there are multiple other things which are in lacunae and in deficiency when it comes to the overall health ecosystem. What are those? One, when it comes to the COVID-19, we did face the issue of the trained staff as well. We did not have enough number of doctors. We did not have enough number of healthcare workers. In fact, doctors had to work even 24 hours as well just because they had to take care of us. They had to take care of our family and friends. In fact, they stood like bedrocks during the COVID-19. So where are we missing? We are missing on the trained front. Where are we missing? We do not have enough number of healthcare workers. So government is coming up with this digital mission. This is fair. This is good. This is also good in terms of technological advancement, but the government should also focus on more healthcare workers, training them, and ultimately this is what is required, says the author. Further, as we speak about the trained staff, the most important factor is India's federal structure. Why? That is because health is in the state list. Since it is in the state list, one state would be able to invest too much of money in the health infrastructure. They would be able to take care of the people, but there are larger states which may not be able to cater to the needs of the people as well. There are multiple rural regions which do not have the hospitals, which do not have the required infrastructure, and they do not have the trained staff in the rural areas as well. Since health is in the state sector, it is a state subject, so the government of India will have to coordinate with multiple states in India, seek their opinion, provide them assistance so that all of these issues are ultimately resolved. The factor that we have to focus in this particular backdrop is the personal data. What is happening? It is speaking about digital mission. What would happen under digital mission? We are providing our data. What is this data? This is sensitive data. This is very much intricate to the privacy of a person. But what if this information is stolen? What if there is a data leak as well? In that case, there is violation of privacy. We do not have the data protection laws as of now, so the government of India will have to make sure that there is a personal data protection law in picture and has to look into the security of data when it comes to the digital mission. Added to this, there can be a problem when the private insurance company also tie up with the private hospitals, or there is a data leak as well. If they tie up with the hospitals and there is a leak of data, they can also make sure that they're extracting the information, know about the diseases of the people, and they can also increase the premium that has to be paid by that individual. So if they know the data, if they know that a person is suffering from a disease, and if that person's data is already available with the insurance company, if that person goes about paying the premium, they can also increase the premium. So data protection becomes important, says this article. Finally, the data mining can also take up as well, and when that happens, they might also see that there is a specific region where more number of people are suffering from a particular disease. They may cater to only to the rich sections of the society, ultimately leaving the poor sections out of the race as well. So who will be the sufferers? It will be the poor people who will be the major sufferers. All of this will have to be taken into picture. The government will have to address all these issues, and ultimately what we require is an efficient, accessible health ecosystem which has to be inclusive, which has to be provided to every single person. So the government also needs to focus on the overall health ecosystem and not only on the digital advancement. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says a lesson from China on gig workers' rights. First, let us try and understand what is the meaning of gig worker. Have you ever ordered food from Swiggy or Zomato? Yes, we would have all ordered it. We would have a person who would pick up our food items from the restaurant and he would deliver to our doorstep. So this person who's delivering it is called as a gig worker. Let's take the example of Ola or Uber. There is a person who comes and picks us up, and this person is also called as a gig worker. So who is a gig worker? A gig worker is not a permanent employee of that particular organization. Do you think the delivery boys are the permanent employees of Swiggy or Zomato? No. Do you think the Ola or the Uber drivers are permanent employees of Ola or Uber? No. These are the people who are temporarily provided an opportunity. They work day in and day out, and their payments are made on a daily basis. On one side, this can be advantageous, but on the other side, these people do not get the social security schemes and programs. As a result, in the month of September, that is on September 20th, we have the Indian Federation of App-based Transport Workers on the behalf of all the gig workers filed a public interest litigation where in the Supreme Court of India requesting the government of India to provide relief to all those workers who were hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. So what was happening? Since these are the temporary workers, these are the gig workers, they do not have the social security schemes and programs. All of us might have PF, we might have insurance schemes and programs, but these workers did not have any of these. That is why the Indian Federation of App-based Transport Workers have asked the Supreme Court of India to tell the government of India to tell those companies to provide some of the social security schemes and program. The petition in fact asked the gig workers, the platform workers to be recognized as unorganized workers under the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act of 2008 so that these people would be awarded with social security benefits. This is what is the context of this article. So the author goes on to compare the Indian model which is currently present in India and draws some of the examples as to what is happening in China right now. Just like we have Swiggy and Zomato in India, they have a duopoly about the delivery of food in India. Similarly, in China, there are two applications called as Meitun as well as Elmi. What was happening? They did not respect the rights of the people. They did not provide the minimum wages as well. Their rights were not supported by all these companies. In fact, they were even not paid the monthly wages as well. All of this had come into picture, and there is one of the monthly magazine called as Renwu. What does Renwu do? Since it is a monthly magazine, it opens up, it writes an article, it shows about the flight of these gig workers, and ultimately number of people in China, the public also supported this article. The government until then may have known it, may not have known it, but after this article, because of the public support, because of the large scale protest conducted by these workers of the gig economy, the government realized that this particular sector has to be revamped. So what does the government do? The government, after looking into what are the discrepancies in the gig economy, finally goes on to say that we have what is called as the common prosperity. What is this common prosperity? As much as people are developing, they are also making profits as well. These profits will also have to be delivered, will be given to number of people. So if there is a delivery boy working in Meitun as well as in Elmi, he is also making contributions to that company. So he has to be getting a fixed payment as well. So what does the government in China do? It says that they should not set any evaluation criteria based on optimization algorithms as per these companies. Instead, the rights, the dignities of these workers will have to be respected, says the government of China. So basically, the abuses that were once conducted, the wages which were not paid on time, where there was a delay in the payment of wages, in other cases, the wages itself was not paid. So all of this was taken into consideration by the Chinese government. In fact, it also issued warnings and guidelines to these two gig-based companies, and ultimately the rights of the workers were given back to the workers. So what are two things that we see here? One, there was support from the public. Two, there was media which was able to support them. Added to this, there were protests that were made by these gig workers. So ultimately, justice was delivered to the people who work in the gig economy. Now let's draw a parallel to the Indian context. There were workers who were working with Swiggy. What happened? Swiggy was paying about 35 rupees for one single delivery. So what was happening over a period? This was reduced to about 15 rupees. So this means that there was a drop in the remuneration. As a result, people go on a strike against Swiggy. This is where we have the Joint Commissioner of the Labor Department who enters into a negotiation between Swiggy as well as the workers, and ultimately this was settled in a peaceful manner, where Swiggy also said that it may increase the prices as well. Similarly, only, there are issues in Zomato as well. There are other issues in Ola, Uber as well. So all of this will have to be heard. They have to be provided social security benefits. So we can take the example from China, says this article. In China, what we had is the public opinion. In United States of America, a number of gig workers collective voice was also raised. In fact, people also uninstalled apps as well so that they can support the gig workers. So similar such initiatives by media, by public, will also have to be taken. So it is not only the people, that is the employees, who have to fight against this cause, but a larger support of the public as well as the government also needs to be taken into picture, says this article. So only when we have the public support, the government will look into it, and only when the government issues guidelines, these people's social security norms will be considered, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. PM CARES fund should come under the public authority. Examine. Despite the claims of the National Digital Health Mission supporting universal health coverage digitally, the overall fundamentals of the health ecosystem have to be set right to achieve better outcomes. Analyze. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.